hung up on those trace or minute amounts of sugar, especially if there's fiber involved. Where you do need to be concerned is, again, with products, with supplements, with things that are on the shelves. Those are things that you need to be more cognizant of and really be worried about it. But the small trace amounts, like, don't let that be a barrier for you. Like, yes, be cognizant of it, but don't let it be like the, oh my God, I need to get down to the nitty gritty, every single detail. Unless you're just starting out and you're really trying to get a hang of things. But for long-term sustainability, like, keep things in context, right? 1 gram from vegetables isn't going to be the thing that knocks you out of ketosis and ruins your whole progress. Don't let that happen. Next question. Are exogenous ketones okay? I think exogenous ketones are great. They're a tool, right? Utilize them as a tool like they should be utilized. They're not there to completely replace and instead of lowering carbohydrates, utilizing exogenous ketones and eating a Big Mac with a large Coke likely isn't going to do you much benefit. But utilizing exogenous ketones as a tool, I think there are synergies of utilizing exogenous ketones along with a well-formulated ketogenic diet. We're seeing more and more research come out on exogenous ketones. I actually just met with someone on our team. She's brilliant, diving into the research of looking at all these different mechanisms and pathways that BHB and all these different product ingredients and potential products work through. And to me, what fascinates me the most is the signaling aspect, right, that ketones have. I've never seen anything like it, where it's not only a fuel source, like carbohydrates are a fuel source, glucose is a fuel source, ketones are a fuel source, but ketones also have all these other incredible signaling properties that are just profound. I'm fascinated by that aspect, and I think we're going to need about 2 to 3 more years of solid, hard research to even begin to start to lay a foundation of understanding all the potential that they have as far as signaling, effects on DNA, HDAC inhibition, all these different markers. It's just absolutely fascinating. Does it matter where your protein is coming from? Do they have different effects, like whey protein versus steak? It definitely does differ. It's not the same. But what you want to shoot for is high quality sources of protein. It's one of the caveats of being vegan or vegetarian. And I actually just did a podcast. Again, I have nothing against vegans or vegetarians. If you want people that are going to rip apart vegan or vegetarians, jump to the carnivore tribe or carnivore keto people. Like, they'll battle it out. I hope that nonsense stops very soon, because there's a place for all of it to live. But in essence, the quality, like one of the reasons where vegetarians and vegans lack is that they don't have a lot of essential amino acids in their protein sources. So like tofu or some of these other things are very low in high quality amino acids, primarily leucine. Leucine is one of the most important amino acids that's responsible for muscle growth and maintaining muscle. And you don't get a lot of that on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So you just need to be very careful with that. Now as far as in general, you eat like a balance, you eat some plants, you eat some meat. Do the sources matter? Yes, just make sure you're getting high quality. Steak has a different amino acid profile than whey. The digestion kinetics of how they get digested are very different. If I eat a steak with butter, it's going to have a very different digestion kinetics than if I drink a whey protein shake. It's the reason why, and this is coming from someone who used to slug down whey protein shakes all the time, I don't recommend people who are on a ketogenic diet, unless you're like an extreme CrossFit athlete, to slug down whey protein shakes. Number one, I don't think it's necessary. 2, whey is does have an insulin response. It's insulinogenic. So it will have an insulin response, will have a glucose response. So don't go slugging down protein shakes unless you're utilizing it, again, like around a really hard workout. Instead, I've talked about tips and tools to make like keto smoothies. Utilize whey protein with like MCTs or avocados and like fatten that baby up a little bit before you drink it. But yes, there will be a difference between the digestion kinetics of steak and whey and the amount needed to hit what's called the protein threshold, which is basically the threshold where that light kind of switches on, where you're like, cool, I'm anabolic, meaning creating new muscle tissue. That threshold differs via different protein sources. Rice protein, you might need 40 grams, whereas whey protein, you only need 20 grams. So yes, there's different proteins differ for sure. K-Day asks, what are the best resources for keto diet doubters? I guess I need to understand the context more of what you're asking, but I hope ketogenic.com is one of those resources. We try and put out a ton of information on there, but there are so many incredible pages and people that are out on social media to point them to. I just did a podcast on finding your anchor. Find your anchors in the keto space. There are so many incredible people that are putting out, but like Jimmy was just on here, like Jimmy's work. There's I can go on and on. Suzanne, Keto Karma, Leanne Vogel, like all of these different people who are putting out high quality information, podcasts, and resources for people, point them to those. And the thing to keep in mind is this. You can only help people who want to be helped. Understand that. Like as much as I want, and I love she's probably watching this. And Mom, I love you to death. I love my mom more than anyone in the world. She's an absolute hero. My parents are huge inspiration for me and have allowed me to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to do what I do today without my mom. But my mom doesn't want to stop smoking. I've been trying for years to try and get her to stop smoking until a point where I probably have a kid. That'll probably be the day that she stops smoking because she'll care more about that kid than she will about smoking. But the same thing goes with people who are, you're trying to get your friends and your family members really embarking on this and really buying in. You can provide them the tools. You can provide them the resources. They have to internally want to do that, right? You can only help people who truly want to be helped. And a lot of times people want help. They just need the guidance. So be that person, step up, be that coach, be that leader, be that mentor for them, guide them along in the process. And it's one of the reasons why, like my friend Drew Manning, like he has this incredible story with Fit to Fat to Fit of where like he gained a ton of weight. So that way he knew psychologically what his clients were going through and then lost that weight with them. He was their mentor, their coach throughout the entire process. And so he needed to understand that if you're doing that with a family member, you're doing that with a friend, I'm not saying to do that. That's like the extreme, but be there to guide them and mentor them. You be that source of light for them, for sure. Are multivitamins necessary? No, they're not necessary. If you're eating if you have a whole foods balanced diet approach, you can get in a lot of great essential vitamins and minerals through whole foods. If you're on a ketogenic diet, you're definitely going to want to supplement with some degree of electrolytes. It's very difficult to get the amount of sodium or potassium and magnesium that your body needs. Utilizing electrolytes to get those in is going to probably be essential and highly, highly recommended. I found it myself. I see it with people all the time. People that struggle and have headaches, constipation, like any of the byproducts of some of the keto negative effects that some people report are oftentimes attributed to inadequate electrolyte intake and consumption. Are there negative influences from carbs/sugars before training? Was told insulin might negatively affect performance. Are there negative effects to consuming glucose and carbohydrates before performance? If your goal, or before training, if your goal is optimizing body composition and losing fat, yes, you probably wouldn't want to jack up insulin before you're about to go train or do cardio. Probably not ideal. If your goal is performance, that changes the thing. Like if your goal is to optimally perform, I think you can utilize carbohydrates as a tool. I think carbohydrates are meant to be utilized in that fashion. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. our body can make the amount of glucose that it needs on its own, but we should be looking at carbohydrates as a tool. So for people who are trying to perform or high-level athletes, I think that's where carbohydrates can be essentially utilized as a tool to help increase performance. There's been several studies where even taking carbohydrates, like in endurance athletes or sprinters, if say this was like glucose and in a ton of water, or say this was, I'm not even going to say the name because, but a sports drink that has a ton of sugar in it, and I were to put it into my mouth, swish it around and spit it out, I'd get an ergogenic or performance benefit just by doing that. It's interesting, right? There's some, we can go deeper into that at some other time, but there are benefits to even doing what's called carbohydrate mouth rinses, where you're not completely digesting the carbohydrates, you're just swishing around your mouth. And there's some enzymes inside of your mouth, inside of saliva, that can start breaking that down and potentially cause a cognitive benefit, which ultimately can have a performance benefit. Can you tell us more about ketogenic.com and the Ketogenic Certified Program? So for those of you who don't know what ketogenic.com is yet, it's ultimately a huge resource. Our goal is to provide as much tools, tips, and information for people who are following the ketogenic lifestyle, and literally just put out high quality, free information. That's what we're doing. Right now, we're finalizing the details. Someone asked about the Ketogenic Certified Program. Well, we're going to be having two different types of programs. One's going to be for people, one's going to be for companies. The one for people is going to be our keto mentoring program. So we're literally going to take very select, small group of individuals. We're going to do one group before the new year, and then really start ramping up in 2019, but allowing people who want to really be coached and mentored by some of the best dietitians and coaches in the world that we have here at ASPE, really walking through a 3-month program. That's going to be our keto mentoring program that'll launch and come out next month. But also we have our Ketogenic Certified Program. And one of the things about the Ketogenic Certified Program, that's going to be for companies, and kind of like how you see vegan, or you see, what are some other labels that you see on products? Gluten-free, you see Whole30 approved, kind of like you see those seals of approval on products. We're going to have our Ketogenic Certified seal of approval that goes onto products. The testing is going to be absolutely insane. I think any keto certified program out there right now is I don't want to say garbage. That's me. I'll say is inadequate, because what they do is they look at a label and they say, oh, well, that looks good. Their label looks good. Here you go. Here's the certification. We're not going to do that. We're going to do a deep dive of the label. We're going to do a deep dive of each ingredient, and then we're actually legitimately going to test it out utilizing blood inside of our laboratory. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? The label can say whatever it wants to be. Y'all, if you've been in the keto community for a while, you know that companies come out with products that what's on their label isn't what's in their product. There's companies that still utilize IMO. And at the beginning of this talk, I just talked a little bit about how IMO is no longer a fiber. Our lab was one of the first to break ground on that research. We did research 2 years ago showing that IMO, isomalto oligosaccharides, actually cause a glucose and insulin response, whereas something like soluble corn fiber doesn't, has no impact on glucose or insulin. But companies still utilize IMO, and a company could come along and say, hey, here's my product that has 10 grams of carbohydrates, 9 of which are IMO. Is that keto friendly, or is that ketogenic certified? Likely, maybe not. But on their label, it only says 1 net carb. And so an informed consumer might pick that up and go, I'm just consuming this product that has 1 net gram of carbohydrates, when in actuality, it's more like 9 net grams of carbohydrates, and they don't factor that into the entire equation. So that program will be launching very soon. We have a lot of companies that are interested in doing it, which I'm very excited about, because it's good to see companies that are being progressive and actually want to test out their products to make sure that they're legitimate, and to make sure that they're testing out for the consumer. Because at the end of the day, that's one of our goals here at ketogenic.com, is to make sure we're protecting this conversation. There's so much nonsense out in the world, and there's so many benefits to keto, that I think this conversation can last. It's not going to be an Atkins. I don't want this thing to implode in 6 months to a year. I want my kids to know that this ketogenic lifestyle is real. There's a ton of research and science behind it. It's up to us to protect it. So Foss 24, is it normal to get kicked out of ketosis after you eat? This happens to me almost every time. Yes, and this is why I think having a general definition of ketosis being defined by blood millimole levels is not very, it's not all-encompassing. I don't think it's wrong, but it's not all-encompassing, because I can do the same thing with working out. I can do the same thing with eating, even if I eat a ketogenic meal. So this is why our testing process for Ketogenic Certified is going to be so comprehensive, because we're factoring this aspect in. But if I right now, if I were to measure my blood, next time we do it live, I want to do it live. But if I were to measure my blood and say I'm at 0.5 millimoles, and I go out this door, I walk around our facility and come back, I can come back and measure at 0.2 millimoles. Does that mean that that walk knocked me out of ketosis? Does that mean I'm no longer in ketosis in this very moment? No, that means my tissue is likely taking up and utilizing those ketones. That shouldn't necessarily mean that I'm out of this state. That's why I think blood's a great tool, a great way to measure, but I don't think it's all-encompassing. It's the only thing that matters. I think that even if you're eating a ketogenic meal, you will get some bump in glucose or insulin regardless. It's to what degree. Think long-term. Think macro. Stop focusing so much on the micro little things. What are your thoughts about switching between keto, low carb, and Mediterranean? Great point. I tend to do this. I don't go Mediterranean very often, but I do have times where I switch to low carb. There's actually some research by Paoli et al., and they did some research where they basically found that you can still make progress by going keto. I think in their study they went like keto for several weeks, maybe like 8 weeks, and then they transitioned to low carb, and then they went back in. So I think that is a tool and something that people that are stalling, I recommend to, it's an option, right? I recommend protein ups, but even transitioning from like keto to low carb back to keto is certainly feasible, and is something that certainly can allow people to continue to adapt and maintain a degree of flexibility, right? Because staying keto 24/7, 365 can have its challenges. I think there's alternatives. I think there's absolutely ways to do it. Fortunately, there's amazing products that are out in the market now that make that a heck of a lot easier rather than just eating bacon, butter, and eggs all the time. But to the same degree, we're human. There's going to be times where it's like, you know what, during the holidays, will I probably be keto? No, but I'm going to be low carb. I'm definitely going to be low carb, but I might eat a little bit more and indulge in one or two things with my family. But the only thing that I warrant people is the reason I don't talk about this more is because I'm afraid that a lot of people will go, all right, well, that means I can go keto for 2 weeks, low carb for 8 weeks, keto for 1 week. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. The point was I'd rather people go keto for like 10 to 12 weeks, go low carb for 2 weeks, and then get back on keto and get back into this unique metabolic state. That would be the goal. But a lot of times people take it out of context and go, well, cool, that means Ryan said I can just do keto for 1 week and then go low carb for 8 weeks. It's like, well, I was kind of trying to recommend the opposite, but yes, it's certainly possible and feasible. Sincerely, Kale. Interesting. How much berberine is an efficacious dose? 500 milligrams, 2 to 3 times per day. If you're using a high-quality berberine supplement, and I don't have any brands that I'd recommend, this is one of the only things that other than creatine monohydrate, it's one of the resources where I say that if you look on Amazon, there's probably some pretty good reviews. But like a good friend of mine, Sean Wells, I had him on the podcast. He has a company called BioTrust. They have something called IC5, which has chromium, grains of paradise, and an efficacious dose of berberine in it. That's one of the ones that I utilize. I also utilize just straight berberine. I don't know the product name or the company from Amazon, but you do need to be careful with it. There are some sketchy ones out there, but just do your homework. 500 milligrams is the efficacious dose, but make sure you're taking it with a meal or prior to a meal. And then people who are on blood glucose lowering medication, definitely consult your physician because you don't want to already be taking insulin or something that's going to lower your blood glucose and then compile that, or metformin, and compile that with berberine without any guidance or advice. So just be careful. What product method do you recommend to measure body composition? So ideally a DEXA. That's what we have in our laboratory. Unfortunately, there's not a lot out there. It's like a $500,000 piece of equipment, very expensive. But if you can find a DEXA, there are places that have DEXAs where you can get a DEXA scan from $100 to $200. I think that'd be great. If not, I'd say the next best is something called an InBody. I like the InBody. There's a lot of gyms have those. I think those are great tools. And then from there, it just kind of gets progressively worse. Just be careful with those scales. You stepping on a scale and then it telling you your body composition isn't going to do much. It's not those aren't very accurate. Skin calipers, unless you have someone who's extremely, extremely well trained utilizing them, there's such a degree of variation within those. Just be careful with it. At the end of the day, 99.9% of people don't need to get down to the nitty-gritty of, oh, I want to go from 16% body fat to 14%. Just make constant steady improvements. Like if you're seeing changes in your body composition, you feel good, and you're doing things right, that's what matters, right? Does high glucose contribute to low ketone production? Certainly. If your glucose is elevated and you have elevated insulin, that would turn off ketone production. So just make sure you're keeping glucose at bay, even if you're not ketogenic. I think keeping glucose regulated and controlled is likely a good idea for sure. Thoughts on C8 MCT, better for ketone production than C10 C12? Who asked this question? It's a really good question. So the question was C8 MCT versus C10 and C12. Nicracia? Yeah, really good question. So here's the thing. C8 has been shown to be better for ketone production than C10 and C12. You're absolutely right. However, there's a caveat to this. That doesn't mean I recommend only consuming C8 MCTs. I think there's new research coming out showing benefits to C10, and there's plenty of research now showing benefits to C12. It's a Keto Brownie founder. Awesome. Love those. I got to get back to you guys on doing some testing. That's one of the companies who reached out to do testing on their product. Amazing. Glad to see that. So here's the question. Is C8, C10, C12? There's more and more research coming out now. If you look at C12, even though if you take straight C12 and look at blood levels of ketones, it might not be as high as C8. There's new research out of Japan showing that C12 actually may increase ketone production in neurons in the brain. It's one of the reasons, and Dr. Newport was one of the first ones to introduce this to me and send me this research. It's one of the reasons why I think coconut oil has such profound benefits and opportunities for individuals who have neurological disorders, like Alzheimer's, like she talks about with her husband. That's where I think an enormous benefit could be for incorporating in coconut oil. It's one of the reasons why I was so passionate on getting her in here and addressing that nonsense about coconut oil being poison, because of all the benefits, not only that C8 MCT has, but that C12, which is also known as lauric acid, has not only for producing benefits in neurons in the brain, but also it's got antimicrobial benefits. There's a whole host of new research that needs to be done in that area that C12 can have benefits. So I wouldn't say I'm all C8 or I'm all C12. I think a good blend of each is beneficial. It all depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for increased ketone production? You can utilize C8 MCT. You can utilize exogenous ketones if you're looking to elevate ketone levels. If you're looking for more C12 and potentially some neurological benefit, you can utilize exogenous ketones. You can utilize it in combination with C12 MCT. Like all these different things are possibilities. Just play around with it. See what works best. Is it normal to feel super wired at night and have a hard time winding down? I mean, I'm like that. Just passionate about life. You're one of those go-getters, right? Now, there's a couple things you could do. I actually did a podcast. Check it out on What the Fat. I did a podcast with Dr. Jacob Wilson on tips and tools to help improve this concept. One, make sure you're not consuming caffeine past like 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That's number one. Number two, utilize blue light blocking glasses. I didn't bring them for you guys today, but I always, at nighttime, anytime, like when I get home after like 7 o'clock at night, I throw on my blue light blocking glasses because I'm still on my computer, I'm still on my phone, answering DMs or checking out Instagram or answering emails and texts. But use blue light blocking glasses. They help block blue light. Use blackout curtains at night. Stop watching TV when you're in bed and stop playing on your phone when you're in bed. Those are all tools. And then if none of that still helps, 2 aspects of supplementation. Make sure you're getting vitamin D3. Don't take it at night. Take it earlier in the day. Vitamin D, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. If you take vitamin D3 earlier in the day, it can potentially help you with sleep, but you don't want to take it at night because it has some interaction with melatonin. But at nighttime, also try incorporating in magnesium. It's one of the electrolytes that's commonly depleted and often people are very low in on a ketogenic diet because they're screening it out over and over and over. And unless you're getting in a lot of green leafy vegetables, it's very difficult to get a lot in with a well-formulated or with a ketogenic diet. With a well-formulated, you can get it in. But utilize magnesium. Magnesium can help kind of calm you down, de-stress you. There's a lot of great companies out there that have good sources of magnesium, but just make sure you don't overdo it or else you'll be running to the bathroom. Magnesium makes you, if too much, can make you kind of go to the bathroom a little bit. Is it normal to get a better workout faster versus fed? Is it normal? Yeah, I do that as well. Like some of my best workouts are fasted. I'm better cognitively fasted. I'm better in the gym fasted. Granted, I may, before I go into the gym, I'll still consider fasting. Like I'll utilize amino acids or exogenous ketones before I go into the gym. I still consider that like fat fasting. Maybe it's amino ketone fasting. Maybe that's a new thing that'll catch on. But yes, I think that's a great idea. If I eat a heavy meal and then I go and try and work out, like it's tough. But just make sure if you're working out, I work out fasted, but immediately when I'm done is when I go home and eat probably my largest meal of the day. Make sure you're not, if your goal is to build muscle, make sure you're not working out and then fasting like 12 hours around that. That's likely not ideal for optimizing muscle growth. You want to eat in and around the workout period if your goal is optimizing muscle growth. But for me, I just incorporate in a whole food meal after my workout to make sure I'm getting that in. What is a well-formulated ketogenic diet? Really good question, and it differs for everyone. But in essence, it is high-quality sources of fats, protein, and green leafy vegetables and fiber. I think like a well-formulated ketogenic diet is going to be one that utilizes high-quality fats. You're not getting a ton of processed fats. Even if you're on a ketogenic diet, you're getting in high-quality fats. You're getting in quality protein, meaning that the amino acid profile of those proteins is high, utilizing meat or whey and some of these higher profile, higher quality amino acids. And you're incorporating in green leafy vegetables, which ultimately have fiber in them. And granted, I know there's carnivore, I know there's vegetarian, but a well-formulated ketogenic diet differs for everyone. But for most people, incorporating in fiber from green leafy vegetables, getting in quality protein sources, and getting in high quality fats, that's going to really encompass a well-formulated ketogenic diet. Amy Trims, if someone is trying to gain muscle, should they be concerned with consuming too much protein and that kicking you out of ketosis? Y'all are brilliant. You're asking some really, really good questions, and I love this. This is what keeps me coming back every week is y'all are learning, you're applying it, and then you're asking really good questions. And so if someone's working out, they can likely get away with a higher amount of protein. That doesn't mean that they can go zonkers and eat 400 grams of protein per day. Not only do I not think that's, I think that's unnecessary, but you likely will knock yourself out of ketosis if you're having that much protein every single day. But people who are working out likely can get away with eating more protein. I wouldn't be as concerned as most people are with protein knocking you out of ketosis. There are people that take it to the extreme. Like having over 200 grams of protein a day likely isn't not only necessary, but it certainly could have some insulinogenic effects. Like that certainly could, especially if you're utilizing whey. But I'm more fearful of people under-consuming protein than I am of most people over-consuming protein. And one of the reasons is people who are eating keto, they tend to have suppressed appetite. They're not eating as much. So I'm not worried about them eating 8 meals a day with 40 grams of protein in each meal, and that being, what, 240 grams. I'm less worried about that than I am someone eating 1 meal a day with 15 grams of protein. And then that person reporting back going, why do I have keto rash and why is my hair starting to fall out? I'm more concerned about that than I am about people overindulging in it. So make sure you're at minimum getting 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. I think, especially if you're active, so kilograms, like for me, I am 80-ish, 80-something kilograms body weight. So like for me, I'll make sure there's no day that I really, unless I'm like completely fasting, that I'll have less than like 80 grams of protein. Because I'm active, I work out a lot and things like that. But just make sure, especially females, I see this a lot of times with women, make sure you're optimizing protein intake. Try not to stay anything close or below 20 to 25 grams of protein. I get really worried, especially with females, how it can affect hormone levels and hair loss when they really start suppressing protein intake. But in the same degree, people bring up a great point, don't overdo it. Don't go bananas. Literally don't go bananas. Unless they're green bananas, then you might be able to play around with some bananas. How often do you have these lives so I can plan them into my schedule? Every week. These will be available for 24 hours on YouTube. Is it always available? Always available on YouTube. So we record it, put it up on our YouTube channel. So it's always there for you. So you can go back and watch last week's as well. So these will always be there. I want to archive these. You guys are asking great questions. I hope that you drive other people. People are asking you these questions. Utilize this as a resource. Utilize this to hopefully point them to help answer some of the questions so you don't have to go out there and spend time answering it and being like, oh, well, let me find out what that is. Utilize it. So it's always available on YouTube, and then we do lives every single week, both on Facebook and on Instagram. We try and do them Friday, but for the past 2 weeks, I've been traveling every Friday, so usually it's been on Tuesday. So I really appreciate everyone that's on here right now tuning in, because I know it's a random time on a Tuesday, but y'all are amazing. Recommendations for electrolytes. I don't have a brand. I mean, I think there's a brand out there called Noon. What other brands are out there?
It could be drinks.
Yeah, it could be drink. I mean, I guess you could. Vitamin water doesn't have much. I don't know what they have that's actually in it. There's another one that I had. They're like flavored, but they're not sweetened. I forget the name. If someone knows, you guys jump in and comment below some of the electrolyte companies that. Yes, someone commented. It's Ultima.
Yes.
So I've seen them at a bunch of. Thank you, Bacon. That's an amazing name. Bacon and Megs. Love that. Ultima, yeah, they're good. Yeah, Noon is good. There's a lot of good companies that are out there. The thing you want to look for is look at the sources of what they're utilizing for sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium. but you want to look for something that has sodium in it. You want to look at it for something that has potassium and definitely magnesium. A lot of exogenous ketones have all those, so if you're utilizing exogenous ketones as a tool, you're getting those in via the exogenous ketone formulation and what it's bound to. But electrolytes on its own, I throw in electrolytes to my water all day long. Make sure you're looking for those different things: sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, maybe. 2 more questions. Keto and autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, autoimmune hepatitis. There's a lot of research on that. I can't come out and recommend that you do it. You obviously have to work with your doctor. I highly recommend you find one. Hopefully there might be one on ketogenic.com. We have a whole doctor's finder on there if you want to find someone that hopefully work with in your area. Hopefully, if not, let us know the doctor you're working with and we'll put them on the website because I think that's really important. But there is a lot of data coming out, especially with Hashimoto's. I know a lot of people who have Hashimoto's that they're like, oh, you eat a ketogenic diet? And I'm like, yeah, how did you find out about it? They're like, oh, I had Hashimoto's, my doctor recommended it. But a lot of times autoimmune conditions, think about it, stem from inflammation. And one of the things that we know about a ketogenic diet is it's extremely anti-inflammatory. A lot of the markers and a lot of the things that increase inflammation, sugar, carbohydrates, a lot of these factors, there's a switch called the NLRP3 inflammasome. Ketones block that inflammasome. They lower it. So there's a lot of data. There's a lot of interleukin-6 and things like that that a ketogenic diet has been shown to lower. So people with autoimmune conditions, certainly work with your doctor, make sure it's something, but you're going to have to do a modified approach. There's data on Crohn's patients. My mom suffers from Crohn's. Or she doesn't suffer from it. I hate utilizing that term. She battles Crohn's disease, and she has implemented I'd say a different style of keto. Like her fats aren't really high because a lot of times they can't handle really high amounts of fat, but she does like a modified ketogenic diet, and it works well for her. And she's incorporated in exogenous ketones. We actually published a paper on a case study with Crohn's disease, which was really fascinating. But yes, a lot of times it just needs to be modified to some degree, but it's certainly possible. Last question. Oh boy. How do you feel about a carnivore approach? Is it the lack of fiber and macronutrients a potential problem? I've addressed this question a lot, but I'm glad you guys keep asking it because I guess it's still getting out there. I mean, Joe Rogan had Sean on his podcast and a bunch of these other things, and like a lot of people are talking about it. It's becoming very popular. The one thing I will say about the carnivore ketogenic diet is it's the perfect elimination diet, right? A lot of people talk about elimination diets to be able to identify triggers and things that cause inflammation to them. Going carnivore is a perfect way. Do I think that's something that you should do 24/7, 365? Likely not. I wouldn't recommend it, nor would I do it. I don't think it's bad. I wouldn't recommend it for people as far as sustainability. I think going carnivore, utilizing it as a tool, and then slowly introducing things back in, like I love avocados. Like there's no way I could go without eating avocado if I'm going to go strict carnivore for the rest of my life. Like I need to have avocados in my diet. I love Cobb salad. So the one thing I have noticed since doing a carnivore experiment is I don't force vegetables in. I utilize them as a tool to increase volume, to get fiber in. I think there's a ton of benefits to fiber in vegetables for the gut bacteria. There's certain bacteria in the gut that only feed off of certain fibers that are produced by things like avocados and in plant sources. So I think it's beneficial in that regard. But I'm not going to say it's the worst thing in the world. I'm not going to say it's the best thing in the world. I think there's a ton of people that are seeing incredible benefits who had a ton of inflammation before. The question I have is, are they really addressing the root cause of the problem? I think they need to go back in and fix their gut versus blaming plants for having issue versus saying, I'm never going to eat a piece of broccoli again. That's one of the things I just want to be careful about when I address Carnivore is, I think it's a tool. I think it can be a very beneficial tool. I think there's a lot of people who are doing benefits on it. But from a keto community perspective, the minute we start demonizing broccoli and cauliflower is the minute this conversation will go away forever. We need to make sure we're talking about mass appeal, sustainability. For 90% of the population, eating only meat probably isn't sustainable 24/7, 365, but it's a tool. It's perfect for people that see it and view it as that way. And I think there's a ton of amazing people who are doing beneficial things in that arena by eliminating out certain foods. People are identifying triggers. They're getting in high quality protein. They're getting in high quality fats with butter and ghee on top of their meat. But again, this is a long play. It's about sustainability. I want people to be on this not only now, but 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now and say, I've lived the lifestyle. And hopefully those are the people that are living to 150 plus. That'd be amazing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Appreciate that question. I appreciate each and every one of you, people that are tuned in on YouTube, people that are tuned in on Instagram, people that are tuned in on Facebook. Again, I know it's a crazy time in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, but that just shows me how amazing you guys are, and I appreciate that more than anything in the world because y'all are amazing to really, I love the support and really appreciate you guys tuning in and want to be a resource and an anchor for you guys to hopefully answer some of those questions. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Go out, make this week great, make it the best week yet. There's a lot of amazing, October's right around the corner. It's crazy to think about. But as always, make positivity louder. Love y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.